He raised his pinky and carefully took the first bite of fried chicken in his life. Then he asked the white driver where he should throw the bones. Without a word, the driver calmly rolled down the window and said,
"We do this. This is what we do."
Seeing that, the black man couldn't help but laugh. He then copied the driver, tossing the bone out the window.
There you go.
But before the driver's smile had even faded, he was mocked by other white men at a red light. In the 1960s, racism was everywhere. And now, a white man was working for a black man. Faced with those hostile stares from the car beside him, Tony just raised his middle finger, then hit the gas and sped off. What those two white men would never have guessed was that only months earlier, Tony himself had been deeply racist. When his wife once offered a black worker a glass of water, Tony tossed the cup straight into the trash. His wife didn't understand, but she didn't argue either. Tony was the backbone of the family, and everyone knew about his short temper. With his strength, Tony worked as a bouncer at a bar, handling unruly customers to earn extra trust from patrons. He'd even stage little tricks with the cashier. She'd sneak valuables from a guest, and Tony would miraculously recover them, earning both gratitude and a generous tip. He always acted reluctant to take the money, building a reputation for honesty. That way, Tony made plenty of friends. But one night, everything changed. A fight broke out at the bar, and Tony threw a man out with his bare hands. What he didn't know was that this man had powerful connections. Because of that, the bar was forced to shut down, and Tony suddenly found himself unemployed, with no steady income. He had to take odd jobs to support his family. Through a friend's introduction, he went to a mansion to interview as a driver for a pianist. When the boss appeared, Tony froze. The man was black, sitting high on his throne-like chair. Dr. Shirley asked if Tony minded working for a black man. Tony didn't like the idea, but for money, he swallowed his pride. Shirley explained he needed more than a driver. He wanted a bodyguard, a travel manager, someone to shine his shoes and wash his clothes. He was about to tour the Deep South, where racism was at its worst. The job would last 2 months. Pay $3,000 a month, plus room and board. The salary was tempting, but Tony stood up and refused. He could handle driving for a black man, but he would never be someone's butler. Shirley looked disappointed. The agency had recommended Tony more than once, saying he could solve any problem. Hearing that, Tony reconsidered. He agreed to take the job, but only if his pay went up by $200, and with one condition: he would never be a butler. Shirley just replied,
"Thank you for stopping by."
So Tony missed the chance. He kept hustling for small change, even selling his beloved watch to pay the rent. But only a few days later, Shirley suddenly called. He agreed to all of Tony's terms. Soon, Tony and Shirley were ready to hit the road. Before leaving, Shirley's manager handed Tony a guidebook for black travelers. It was called the Green Book. Inside were hotels and motels in the South that would accept black guests. Then they set off in a luxury Cadillac. On the way, Shirley gave clear instructions. Every piano must be a Steinway. He couldn't play on any other brand. And every night, he needed a bottle of whiskey. Tony quickly wrote everything down. But Tony wasn't the most disciplined driver. He liked eating while driving, and he often turned to chat with Shirley instead of watching the road. That made Shirley nervous, and he told him to keep his eyes ahead. Tony didn't care. At one stop, he even came back just to grab his wallet, showing he still carried prejudice toward Shirley. Shirley frowned but said nothing. By nightfall, they reached the first stop. The white band members chatted downstairs, while Shirley sat alone on the balcony. Tony felt a twinge of sympathy, but when Shirley sat at the piano, his fingers danced across the keys, producing the most beautiful music Tony had ever heard. For the first time, Tony stopped underestimating him. He even admitted it sounded amazing. The first concert was a success. On the road to the next city, Tony played music from famous black singers, assuming Shirley would know them, but Shirley didn't. Later, Tony picked up a stone from a souvenir shop and tried to keep it without paying. Shirley saw it and called him a thief. Tony argued it was just lying there, but Shirley insisted, "Take it back and pay for it." Frustrated, Tony threw it away. In Hanover, Tony inspected the piano before the show. It wasn't a Steinway. It was old and dirty. Tony demanded a replacement. The white manager dismissed him, saying any piano would do, but Tony stood his ground. Eventually, a Steinway was brought in, and Shirley delivered another stunning performance. As they traveled deeper into the South, Tony started to see Shirley differently. He opened up about his family, a loving wife, children, and many friends. Shirley, by contrast, had only money and loneliness. His marriage had failed, and even his brother kept his distance. Hearing this, Tony felt compassion. During a roadside stop, Tony bought fried chicken and urged Shirley to try it. Shirley had never eaten fast food before. At first, he refused, but finally he picked up a drumstick. One bite, and he realized how delicious it was. That was the scene from the beginning. Soon, they entered the Deep South, where racism was worst. Most hotels wouldn't allow black guests. Shirley had to stay in shabby motels, while Tony stayed in luxury hotels nearby. At night, Shirley sat outside alone. Other black men invited him to play basketball, but when he declined, they mocked him.
Just afraid of getting that butler uniform a little dusty.
They thought he was just Tony's servant. Shirley forced a smile and left. One evening, the white band members rushed to Tony. Shirley was in trouble at a bar. Tony stormed in and demanded they release him. The owner even pulled out a shotgun, but eventually they let Shirley go. On the way back, Tony scolded him for being careless in white bars. Shirley said discrimination was everywhere. He had long grown used to it. Later, their car broke down. Tony worked under the pouring rain to fix it. Black laborers nearby watched in shock. A white man working for a black man? It was unthinkable. But instead of pride, Shirley only felt shame. He got back in the car, and they left quickly. In North Carolina, they attended a fancy banquet, but the main dish was fried chicken, a stereotype about black people. Shirley was insulted but kept calm. When he asked to use the restroom, the host refused and told him to go outside. Shirley insisted on returning to his motel instead, even though it meant an hour's delay. Tony didn't understand, but for Shirley, it was about dignity. Tony later learned from the band members that Shirley was highly respected in the North. He was paid triple the fee, and the elite adored him, yet he chose to tour the South. When Tony asked why, Why? They refused to explain, believing Tony was just like other whites, who never truly respected Shirley. On another day, they stopped at a tailor shop. Shirley admired his suit. The owner gladly let Tony try it, but when Shirley wanted to, the owner stopped him. If he wanted to try, he had to buy first. It was blatant discrimination. Shirley smiled bitterly and walked out. Despite the challenges, the tour went on smoothly, and Tony and Shirley grew closer. But one rainy night, they accidentally drove into a restricted road. Police stopped them. They said black people couldn't use that road at night. Tony argued, and both men were taken to jail. At the station, Shirley tried to reason with the officers. They ignored him. Finally, he made a phone call. Minutes later, the police chief ordered them released. The officers' attitudes changed instantly. Tony realized then that Shirley had powerful friends, people far beyond ordinary influence. He looked at Shirley differently. From that moment, his respect grew.